want to welcome you back. We continue our study into the doctrine of sin in your course notes and in Erickson. And in this lesson, we'll be covering the magnitude of sin and the social dimension of sin. Both of these chapters are profoundly important for you as a theologian to actually consider. Erickson is basically asking a couple of questions throughout these chapters. How far does sin reach within myself and also within the larger community? And this brings up the issue of total depravity, original sin, and corporate responsibility. Now, I need to encourage you to take the time in reading these chapters. They're not difficult to understand, but there is a lot that Erickson is taking us through. So meditate upon the implications that Erickson is bringing out. A good habit is to read the questions that Erickson asks at the beginning of the chapter, and then see how he unpacks that and answers those questions. So let's quickly run through the magnitude of sin. Erickson starts with the Old Testament here, and the moral code established in the Old Testament, specifically the law, is for a nation. Therefore, it deals directly with actions and consequences. If you do something, you're in sin and you are due punishment. This is a corporate reality. However, even in the Old Testament, there is a development within the prophets of the inner inclination to sin. The heart is increasingly highlighted as the seedbed of sinfulness, and the Psalms bring this out quite beautifully. It is in the New Testament that this is fully developed. The Sermon on the Mount becomes one of the most profound writings of this, and Paul's writing clearly show that sin is in our desires. It finds its home in the innermost part of us. Effectively, we are thoroughly corrupted by sin. So when Paul says that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, we tend to read this as a missing of the moral code, again, action, consequences. How there's something deeper going on here. Paul is saying that the glorious standards, being God's images, we have completely failed through and through. The rot of our failure runs through not just our actions, but our attitudes and our inclinations. So from here, Erickson looks at the theories around the origin of this corruption, and the doctrine of original sin comes up. Now, he gives his own take at the end of this, what he calls a contemporary model, biblical contemporary model, where we are both born with corrupt nature and guilt, and then he further develops this with an Augustinian natural headship. Read through this and understand his argument here. From here, Erickson moves to the social realities of sin. This section is pretty self-explanatory as you read through it. His arguments identify that sin has entirely corrupted the corporate realities of the world, our societies, our clans, our interactions between each other. And therefore God holds us accountable according to these realities. What I found particularly helpful here, especially in this section, is of the overcoming of these social sins. He addresses several approaches, highlights their strengths and weaknesses. I'd be interested to kind of see what you take of these. But it must be said here that if the entirety of the human being is corrupted by sin, the old must die and we must be born again. And therefore, if society is likewise corrupted, revolution and reform simply don't go deep enough. They are shallow attempts in healing a deep crisis. The famous lex talionis, the law of retaliation, or an eye for an eye, will never cure the crisis of our corporate guilt and sin. Rather, there has to be a complete remaking of the society. Just as with the individual, the corporate needs rebirth, the kingdom of God. We could speak about this. And this will only happen again when Jesus comes and the old is taken away in a blinking of an eye and we are completely made new in the resurrection. So this is a not so difficult section through Erickson, but it is deeply profound. And so read carefully, read to understand. And may the Lord bless you. We'll see you next time.